Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see all of you here. Wonderful day, blessed day, our God and Father has given to us to be together. A day of which we are assigned, given command, and definitely we follow through with that without hesitation, without excuses. We appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate very much the songs that we've just sung. I hope probably you're breathing heavy after that song. I would say that probably if you're like me, you just take one deep breath and go through it, and then after that you exhale and start back over again, and you get back to where you need to be. But we're going to focus upon the thoughts of that song and the one prior to that. Appreciate all of those that lead us. Appreciate very much Mark introducing all of you that are visiting with us to the congregation here. And pray that our efforts definitely will be focused and attention upon what God wants us to be and do. About, I think it was probably early 2021, a little over 4 years ago, there was a nurse in the São Paulo's Brazil hospital. And she had a patient with her who was in intensive care, dealing with some challenges and effects from COVID. And as a result of that, she noticed that this patient's hands were getting very cold. And as a result of that, she wanted to do whatever she could for the benefit of that patient physically. In her words, I wanted to do this to help improve their perfusion and their saturation, to make sure the blood was flowing and then things were traveling through the system and our circulatory system to the needed tissues and the organs in the body. And as a result, what she did, she took some rubber gloves and put hot water in both of those gloves and put the hand of the patient, both hands, and this happened to be one of those hands, and put both of those gloves, put the patient's hand in between those gloves. To do two things. Number one, to increase the blood flow, but also to provide for that patient emotional connection, hoping that that patient may believe that they're holding somebody's hand. And she did notice that over time that there was an increase in saturation, perfusion, as well as a sense of peace coming over that patient because of that. What's it been like for you to have held someone's hand? What does it mean for you when somebody were to grab your hand and hold it? Does there any sense of peace or comfort or protection or care or refuge that comes as a result of holding that hand? This hand in 2021 was known to be and stated to be the hand of God because of what this nurse had done for this patient. How many times has it been that we've used this phrase, hand of God, in so many different instances? Tornado comes to a town or a community, and there are people whose lives are spared. And they say, well, it was the hand of God that I was spared. Or they talk about the meeting of two people. God's hand had to be in this. Well, I believe God's hand is in this. And then even when you talk about somebody dying, what do they say? They are in the hands of God. So we use the phrase or reference to the hand of God in a lot of different instances. Could be a crisis, could be a moment of providential care, could be a healing, could be a number of things. Even the meeting of two people for the very first time, and that which ends up in a marriage. So we use that phrase quite a bit. But what's the meaning of that? What is the meaning of using the phrase, the hand of God? Talking about the hand of God. Well, I want you to notice with me in the book of Joshua chapter 4, something that's very clear as the people of Israel have crossed over the Jordan River into the land of Canaan. And they've established these stones in the middle of the river. At the end of this, what is the significance of all of this? What is the means of the deliverance of the people, getting them through the wilderness and getting them into this land? In verse 24, it says that all the people of the earth may know the hand of Jehovah, that it is mighty, that you may fear Jehovah your God forever. That people will know the mighty hand of God, and that you may fear Jehovah your God forever. I don't know how many people use the phrase the hand of God in reference to this, but we might want to think about it a little bit more seriously the next time we use that phrase. That if we're talking about the hand of God, are we making reference to this, that they may fear the Lord their God? Wherever it may be, whatever the circumstance may be, whether it's a tragic situation, where it is a near tragic situation, or it's a very providential, caring, healing situation, would we refer to the hand of God as a means of that we may fear God, the Lord, forever? Or is it just a phrase that we just use like we use any other phrase? It's got a kind of like a cliche that we just come up with whenever there's those challenging times come, or trials or difficult times, or when there is this moment of success. God's hand was in this. Be very careful how you use the term the hand of God. Definitely there are scriptures that talk about God's hand. In the book of Psalm chapter 89, happens to be one of those where he mentions something in verse 13. Thou hast a mighty arm, strong is thy hand, high is thy right hand. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of thy throne. Loving kindness and truth go before thy face. Blessed is the people that know the joyful sound. They walk of Jehovah in the light of thy countenance, because of the mighty hand, the mighty arm of God. Notice in the book of Isaiah, chapter 41, verse 8 to verse 13. We're going to come back to this one in just a little bit. But as he is discussing how that he has been the one that chose Israel, he took them from the ends of the earth in verse 9, from the corners of the earth. You, my servant, have chosen thee and cast thee. Fear not, I am with thee. Be not dismayed, I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, I will help thee. I will uphold thee with my right hand of righteousness. And then in verse 13, for I, Jehovah thy God, will hold thy right hand, saying unto thee, fear not, I will help thee. Isaiah chapter 48 even states it clearly in verse 13, talking about God's hand, by saying, yea, my hand has laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand has spread out the heavens. When I call upon them, they stand together. And then there's this phrase or statement that is made in the book of 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6, that a lot of people have used when it comes down to anxiety. Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. Cast all these things upon God. Humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, and he will exalt you, in verse 6. The mighty hand of God. Do we know how mighty this hand is? It's a hand that does it all. It's a hand that has it all. It's a hand that's very comforting, protective, caring, delivering. In our hand. In our hand. Specifically mentioned in the book of Isaiah chapter 41 and verse 10, help thee, uphold thee with thy right hand. One of the things that you must understand when it comes down to the idea of God's hand is that there's this nearness that comes to it. You cannot reach the person next to you and not believe that you cannot hold their hand, them being so close. Hard to do when somebody's on this side of the building and somebody's on this side of the building wishing you could hold their hand. That's not possible. So there's this place of intimacy, there's this place of trust, there's this place of comfort, there's this means of peace, there's this means of protection, there's this means of security, all because of the nearness of God with us with his hand, which is referred to in many instances as the right hand. Power there, love there, grace there. And even when there's this discussion in the book of Ephesians chapter 6, when there's temptations, when there's these difficult things of which Satan throws at us, in the book of Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 to verse 12, mighty, strong is God's hand, all-reaching hand, really close by, but it gives direction to us. I don't know that there's any parent in this room that has a small child that is going to just let their child go off in the woods or go into a dark room or even go into a shopping area unless they grab a hold of their child's hand. Go through the parking lot, go through a crowd of people that there may be 20,000, 30, 40, 50,000 people that are around somewhere. You're not going to let that child just wander in an area that they don't know anything about without you being the one that holds their hand. Because they don't know where they're going. They have never been here before. And in some cases, they may have been here before. I do marvel at how many children come into this building without a holding of the hand of any parent, and they go right to the room of where their class is going to be. 2 years old, 3 years old. They know exactly where they're going to go. But how many times is it being that you would make sure that without a doubt, before your child ever entered into a place they've never been, that you want to make sure that you are the one that holds their hand? Which just really has a very wonderful spiritual application for us, and that is when you think about how do we walk. Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 23 says, no man knows how it is that he should be walking. It is not within man that walks to direct his steps. Same thing's true in the book of Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 5 and verse 7. When you look at the book of Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5, what is it that we're held responsible to do? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not upon your own understanding. In essence, the implication is that you hold on to what God's direction is and that you don't know how it is that you're supposed to be walking. You don't know where you're headed. For in the book of Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12, there is a way that seems right unto man, but the end thereof is the way of death. You can just go whatever way you want to, thinking that it's right, but it doesn't take you exactly where you thought it would go. Even when you look in the book of Proverbs chapter 20. In Proverbs 20, verse 24, these are the words that are said. He said, a man's goings are of Jehovah. How then can man understand his way? Direction. The need for guidance. How many of us, though, are hard-headed enough to say, I got this. I know where I'm going. I don't need any help. I don't need anybody telling me which way to go. Sounds a lot like the Gentiles that Paul was describing in the book of Ephesians chapter 4, verse 17. They had this hard-headedness, and he described them as an ignorant people in the midst of their hard-headedness. So that's where it takes us, where we think we will go and thought we would go, but it doesn't take us where we thought we'd wind up. Let me ask you something when it comes down to all of you parents in this room. What is the meaning of the imperative? Hold my hand. What is the meaning of that? Why do you say that? Why do you do that? When we get out of this car, you're going to hold my hand as we go through the parking lot. We are not going anywhere until you hold my hand. You must hold my hand. Don't let go of my hand. Wherever we go, you will always hold my hand. You're about to cross the street. What is it that you do? You grab a hold of your child's hand and say, hold my hand while we cross the street. What's the meaning of this imperative to say, you hold my hand, hold it. We're not going anywhere until you hold my hand. Let me ask you this. To all of you that are parents who have ever said that to your child, Grab their hand and say, we're not going anywhere until you hold my hand. How many of them have been afraid to hold your hand? Or told you, I'm afraid to hold your hand. I don't trust you while we go through the parking lot. I don't trust you while we cross the street. Trust your hand while we're in the store. I'm afraid of your hands. Well, think about it from what is stated in the book of Isaiah, chapter 41. In verse 10, as we read just a little bit ago, I want to go back to this and look a little bit closer to what it is of which God was saying to his people relative to there are certain things that this hand would provide. In verse 10, fear not thou, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Now, all those statements that are made in verse 10, fear not, be not dismayed, I am thy God, I will strengthen thee, I will help thee, I will uphold thee. And then he says, this is how I do it. I do it with my right hand, my hand of righteousness. And the imperative is, hold my hand. You cannot go through life without holding my hand. You cannot be given the direction that you need without holding my hand. And so the big question is, do we believe in this hand? Do we trust in this hand? Do we know that this hand will take us where we need to go? The imperative of this statement, hold my hand, is found in the faith-acting part of us to say, there is nothing in the world that we can hold on to that's greater than what you want us to hold on to. There is a fulfilling of a need of which nothing in the world in which we hold in our hands will satisfy better than God. We can't obtain what we need through anything else that God's hand cannot provide by holding on to it. When do you hold a person's hand? When you're sad or when you're in joy? When do you hold on to someone's hand? When you're in danger or when you're comforted at home? When do we hold on to hands? We hold on to hands the way of which we should hold on to the hand of God. When there's a need of which nothing in the world could satisfy. But what does God's hand provide? Power, protection. You see, that's why you hold on to the hand of your child before you go into this crowd of people. There's hundreds and thousands of people around. That's protecting you. That's protecting really the child. Because you don't want them finding themselves out lost and wondering, and they let go and you let go. What's the meaning of the power of the hand of God? Go to the book of Exodus. How powerful and protecting is this hand? Look with me in the book of Exodus. This is when God was bringing the people out, or had already brought the people, was about to bring the people out, but he tells you what happened. And here's the thing I want you to notice in the book of Exodus chapter 3. There's a contrast between the hand of Pharaoh and the hand of God. In verse 19, I know that the king of Egypt will not give you leave to go, no, not by mighty hand. He's going to keep you here. But then the opposite in verse 10 is, I will put forth my hand and will smite Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof, and after that he will let you go. His hand will be released from you when you see my hand upon him. That's a wonderful thing to see and know. For when you get to chapter 7 and verse 4, these things are done that the Egyptians will know that I, Jehovah, in verse 4, will stretch forth my hand upon Egypt and bring out children, the children of Israel, from among them. Pharaoh will see it. The people of Egypt will see it. They will know God's mighty, powerful hand. What value is that to us? Well, the book of Psalm chapter 138 has some very, very wonderful words to say about it. When you notice of what he says in verse 7, though I walk in the midst of trouble, thou wilt revive me. Thou wilt stretch forth thy hand against the wrath of my enemies, and thy right hand will save me. When you look at Ephesians chapter 6, as we alluded to just a moment ago in verse 10 to verse 18, what are you going to hold on in your hands? The shield of faith, the sword of the Spirit. Where did all those weapons come from? From whom were they given? They were given from God to you. To hold on, and this is He to you. In the book of John, the 10th chapter, the gospel, how is God going to take care of His people? And verse 29 says, my Father, who has given them unto me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. The power, the strength, the protection, the promising hand of God, as long as we cleave to this hand, has a wonderful means of protection. Please know this. That does not mean that you can never let it go. That does not mean that you just can't walk away and say, I'll do this myself. Be advised, if you decide not to let go of the hand of God and do it to yourself, be ready to be snatched up by somebody that is against you. You won't have the power to overcome then. You will not have the power to escape then. You will not have the protection that you need if you let go of the hand of God. This hand also has the ability to comfort. In the book of Psalm 139, in verse 10, as you look carefully into the description of what this whole chapter is about, and that is God's presence, he talked about the hand. He said, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. The extent of God's hand in any given situation will comfort. The psalmist was talking about in the book of Psalm chapter 23, verse 4, what it is that He will provide for us is comfort. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever. All because of the comfort that he mentioned just before that. Comfort me. Psalm 119 even stated something in verse 50. This is my comfort in my affliction, for thy word has quickened me. Then you have something stated in the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 1. In 2 Corinthians 1, you've got the statements that are made regarding this God of comfort and who has mercies in verse 3, who comforts us in all our affliction, that we may be able to comfort them that are in affliction through the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted. How is it that God's going to comfort us? From a distance? But no, it's close. It's very near, giving us direction in the midst of the sufferings of which we encounter, so that we will have the ability to give the same comfort to those who suffer, that he states in verse 6 as well as in verse 7. God's hand provides comfort. And that is a way of faith acting to receive from God what you cannot receive from anything else. But it is a need that you and I have. This hand of God is what provides us joy. One of the greatest pictures you'll ever see is when there is a child that hasn't seen their parents, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 days. And they may greet them and come running to them with a hug. But then when they walk away, what does it look like? They're walking away with a smile on their face, hand in hand. When a spouse hasn't seen another spouse in quite a while and meets them at the airport, there's a hug that is exchanged, a kiss is exchanged, and then how do they walk off? hand in hand, with smiles on their face. Joy comes as a result of the hand. In the book of Psalm chapter 37, you will clearly see that all that the psalmist has is his dependence upon God for everything. According to what verse 23 says, a man's goings are established of Jehovah, and he delights in his way. Therefore, we talk about this hand of God giving direction. He delights in his way. But notice this, though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for Jehovah upholds him with his hand. You delight in the Lord, and when there is a time of which your life is cast down, he upholds you. He lifts you up. He picks you up. He picks you up. How many times has it been that you've seen these people running down the track or running along in a half marathon or marathon, and they're about 500 feet from the finish, and all of a sudden this person just collapses because they don't have the energy in their legs to get them going past the finish line. And all of a sudden there's this other person that comes along with them or comes up to them, and they pick them up with their hands. They uphold them, and next thing you know, they are hand in hand or arm in arm, and they're going across the finish line together. And there's joy upon all their faces. Both of them have finished. It wasn't about what place it is. It's just getting across the finish line. And the ultimate understanding of what God's hand does for us is exactly what Psalm chapter 16, verse 11 says. Thou hast made known the path of my life. In the presence of the fullness of joy, in thy right hand there are pleasures just as long as I live. No, the pleasures are forevermore. Here, take my hand, lead me. As Tracy was leading us in the song, guide me, O thou great Jehovah, through this pilgrim land. I am weak, but thou art mighty. Hold me with thy mighty hand. Hold me with this hand, because I don't know where I'm going. Your powerful hand is mighty, and it brings me joy because I've got somebody to hold on to. I've got someone that changes my woe is me to joy is me. God's hand, the hand of God, is what brings deliverance and salvation. I don't know how many times you've read the story or you've heard the interviews from people when there's a flood or when there's some building collapses or something happens. Even in the midst of a stampede of people running away from something. And the person being interviewed describes how it is that they tried to reach out and grab the hand of a friend, a loved one. And they just could not reach out far enough to bring them to safety, to save them. And with tears rolling down their face, they describe to you and to everyone that's seeing this interview how they were just inches away from saving their child, their wife, their husband, their friend, their parents. Deliverance. Salvation. If you notice back in that text a while ago that we were looking at in the book of Psalm 139, verse 9 and verse 10, when he described in verse 9 the uttermost parts of the earth, and then right after that he talked about the hand of God, that just tells you how long God's hand is, how far-reaching his hand is to save, even to the uttermost parts of the earth. And I don't know how many of you people have felt this in the midst of all the difficulties that your life may be experiencing, that you felt that you were at the depths of the earth, and there's no one that could be able to uphold you, pick you up, and get you back up to where you needed to be. That's what this hand does. Brings deliverance and salvation. And for all the people that was saved, to you and to me, I don't believe God's going to be able to reach down and save me in this situation that I'm in. I'm too bad. I am the worst of the worst. But notice in the book of Isaiah chapter 59 and verse 1 and 2, yes, the sins do cause division and the iniquities are there. Yet he says his hand is not short that it cannot save. In other words, you're the one that let it go. His hand's out there reaching, but you're the one that's not grabbing a hold of it. You just want to stay right where you are, regardless of what anybody else says, does, or thinks. We see in Scripture in the book of Matthew chapter 14, verse 31, this great instance of a physical hand reaching down into, grabbing hold of a man's hand, Peter, pulling him up out of the torrential waters and keeping him from drowning, saving him, delivering him. And it is this same Jesus that you see in the book of Luke chapter 23 and verse 46, who in the midst of bearing the sorrows and the sins and the shame and the transgression of everybody, going through all the bleeding, all through the pain, all the agonizing parts of his dying. And he looks up into heaven and says, unto thee I commend my spirit. Into thy hands I commend my spirit. Who else is going to help him in that need? Apostles, they're gone. The mother, she's there. All the people around him, crucify him. The only one that's left is God. To reach out and to commend his spirit. God's not going to physically take him off the cross. And this man's hands are reached out like this. And there's nails driven through it. All you need to do is take the nails out. But sometimes you can't take the nails out of your life because of the sorrow and the trials that you're experiencing. Then, whose hand do you hold? I want you to take your left hand, not your right hand. Take your left hand, and I want you to make a fist. And when you make a fist, I want you to squeeze it just as hard as you can. Don't do somebody else's hand this way. I just want you to squeeze your hand, not somebody else's. Okay, now, just let it go. Just release it. Just release it. I want you to imagine that a clutched fist hand is one of which God cannot hold. For within that hand is you, your way, your trials, your problems, your sin, what all you want to do and be, and what all that you think you can handle. Therefore, you have the ability to hold on to it. I want you to think about that. You've got the ability to hold on to it. For no one will take it away from you. As long as you got this fist, you got everything in it. No one takes that away. Somebody grabs a hold of your fist, they're not going to hold it very long. It's going to slip away. And they're not going to want to hold this hand because you've got this fist there. But when you let go, number one, you're giving an opportunity for God to come into this hand and to hold it. Number two, you give an opportunity for God to save the life of the hand that he's holding. Number three, you give your life an opportunity to be held by the hands of brethren to provide for you the strength and the help that you need. And see, the thing is, God's using their hands to give you the strength to hold you up. Therefore, in a figurative sort of way, in a spiritual way, we are upholding each other with the hands of God, giving us both the strength. But as long as this fist is there, nothing but you takes place. But when you open up the hand and you hold the hand of God, you've got perfection. You've got intimacy. You've got all grace. You've got all love. You've got all power. You've got all care. And you've got all joy. That's the hand of God. That's the hand of God that you need to hold. I have heard it said many times at the end of the lesson, as we're about to have. Anyone that needs to be saved, come forward and we will take your hand. Really, it's you that God's going to take your hand and lead you to be saved by baptism in the water because you changed your life. And you want to confess that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. Or those of you that have become Christians before, but you want to hold it all in your hands because you've got that power, you've got that strength, you've got that experience. And yet you have yet to release and open up your hand to God. Just let Him take your hand. For when you do, He will draw nearer. Do what's right while together we sing this song.